Hey guys, what's up? We're 180 Athletics back here. I got my good friend Jeremy McMillan here, J Mac, Coach Mac. He's the baseball strength coach at Texas A&M, does a great job. He and I have been friends for years. We just been here this weekend just trying to bouncing ideas off of each other, just trying to teach each other, trying to learn from each other, better ways to do things. So he brought up something that I actually learned a lot from this weekend about some single leg progressions that he does, and I'm going to incorporate some of my athletes here, but I'm going to pass off to him, let him kind of discuss it, and then we're going to walk you through it here. So
what we're going to be discussing today is basically a progression moving towards a rear foot elevated split squat, also known as a Bulgarian squat. For us, I find this is extremely important for our athletes. With the amount of bilateral work we do, we find a lot of asymmetries in movement patterns, and so one of the reasons we like to bring in single leg work to our program is obviously to train each side of the body a little bit more independently, but also to get a little bit more direct work on the hamstrings, the ratio of the quad to hamstring work within the movement pattern. And then also the majority of our sport is played on a single leg, and so being bilateral athletes, we have to get good at learning how to work unilaterally as well.
Good, yes, perfect. So he's gonna put me through his progression when he starts his athletes. You start them no matter what, whether they're a freshman or JUCO transfer, no matter what, a fresh face to you, you're gonna start them on this.
Absolutely. And so our first movement is basically a traditional split squat. So we're gonna go into a split squat pattern, both feet on the ground, and we're doing an iso hold basically. And the reason we're doing this is to get strong in the bottom position, the most extended position of the movement, but it also just gives us a framework as a coach to look and see what we have with our athletes before we start progressing them through the patterns as they get to the more advanced movement. So Brian's gonna go into a split squat position. Okay, the biggest thing we're looking for when he gets into a split squat position is that I'm looking to make sure the knee is over the toe. Now obviously in the top position it's usually pretty where we want it to be. Where we need to watch is as he moves down into the pattern and goes into the hold, we want to make sure that we have proper traction. The knee's not going outside, the pressure on his foot's not rotating in or out as he moves through the pattern. Now pretty simple, Brian's going to get in this top position. We want to pull the rib cage down so that we're getting to a neutral spine, and then he's going to drop right down, taking the back knee straight down to the ground. Now while he's holding in this position as a coach, you're looking at a midline from the shoulder all the way down to the glutes to the bottom knee is in a straight line. Go ahead and come up. One of the things that you'll see a lot of athletes do is we get a lot of athletes that are anterior rotated in the hips, so their hips naturally sit a little bit forward. They haven't quite learned how to roll into neutral pelvic position. So they'll start here, and in order to gain that tall position, they'll go into a hyperextended position, which is a compensation pattern, creates a lot of stress on the lumbar spine. So that's one of the reasons that we use this exercise in the iso hold, because we're able to tell a lot with the athlete. Go ahead and relax. We're able to tell a lot with the athlete where our issues are, where we have tightness, and some of the things that we might need to put into the program to fix this movement pattern. Secondary to that movement is pretty simple. Brian's going to be in the same position. All we're working now is basically the same movement, but now we're going through the range of motion up and down for repetitions. Early on, a lot of times we'll go down, pause, 1, 2, coming out of the isos, come up, and then eventually we'll get to the point where we'll progress this exercise where he's just up and down through the range of motion. Okay, third progression of the exercise, Brian's going to come up here. He's going to elevate his back foot up on a box anywhere from 2 to 6 inches, and we're going to go through the same movement. Okay, make sure we're pulling down the rib cage. We've got good posture, and then straight up and down. Like this, we're able to increase the range of motion and really work the exercise. And again, we're increasing the range of motion, preparing him to move through the range of motion as the exercise advances. Okay, last progression. And obviously we're using a bench. You can use a bench, put a half foam roller on it, and some companies actually make a piece of equipment that has a roller on it that you can put your foot on the roller. It's a piece of equipment you just move out when you're doing rear foot elevated split squats. So now, same thing. Okay, same movement pattern. We're always making sure we're getting into that proper position. If he's got a little bit of forward lean on the upper body, I'm okay with that as long as that forward lean is true all the way down to the bottom knee, because we're maintaining that neutral pelvic position. Notice as he goes down, he's not letting the knee drive forward. He's actually taking the back knee and driving it back towards the bench so that he is loading the back side of his body and not sitting forward, loading only the front side of his body and then creating bad mechanics and a shearing effect in the knee. by getting out on the toe. So that's a rear foot elevated split squat progression. You know, one of the things that we didn't do in the video is that obviously as you move through these movements, you can progress them within the movement by simply adding a weight vest, by adding dumbbells, by adding a goblet position. You can go contralateral, ipsilateral. So there's a ton of different ways to advance the progression based on where the athlete is. Maybe they're very good at the split squat or the lower elevated split squat, but they're not quite really ready to progress onto this movement. If it's more of a structural thing, then we need to go back in and do things to actually fix some of those movement issues. If it's in terms of they're just not ready for the advanced movement, we can find ways to progress the exercise within it by simply adding some load and some resistance to the movement.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think. I had some questions in there, and I think I'm a little bit out of breath after doing some of this stuff. You said something about ipsilateral and contralateral. What are those? Explain to us.
You know, ipsilateral is going to be weight-bearing load. So if I'm carrying a goblet in a arm bar position, or if I'm holding a dumbbell on the side. So if I'm in my split squat position, ipsilateral is going to be same side as the leg doing the work. So dumbbell's going to be in the right arm, right leg is working. Okay, so I'm ipsilateral as I move through my movement. Contralateral is going to be the right leg up, so I'm working the opposite side of my body. So I'm having to turn on my abdominals on my right side of my body to resist the dumbbell from pulling me over. Same thing with glute activation, and I'm moving through the range of motion. For the ipsilateral and the contralateral I like because it really works on midline stability. Guys that lack a lot of midline stability through their body and have a hard time staying in a straight line and having good posture, it adds an element of load to the movement that it's going to help them work on their posture as they move through the range of motion.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, especially for maybe a high school athlete and some of the ones that we get in, you know, some of the freshmen aren't as physically mature maybe, and a lot of them lack that stability and lack that that kind of contralateral strength or that unilateral strength. So I think it's a great exercise, not only for us and for the higher level athlete, but also for younger kids, and really to kind of get a really good base of the single leg, the split squat especially. Get that base and then progress from there. Don't start with your foot up or your foot up on a bench here. And we don't do that even at this level. So, you know, we're getting probably, for the most part, probably more physically advanced athletes maybe than what you're working with at your school. So it's a really good idea to kind of start with your 2 feet on the ground and really start in that isometric hold, just like you were saying, and really kind of get that right movement pattern first before you start progressing. Just kind of to wrap up, what are kind of your sets and reps as you progress?
As I progress, yeah, so it's usually on my single leg movements. We're staying anywhere from 3 to 4 sets, and we're working anywhere from the 3 to 6 rep range, 3 to 6 reps on each leg. Now, one of the things that I found when you do have an athlete that becomes very advanced and is able to go to the full-blown rear foot elevated split squat, you're going to start being able to load them up with a barbell on their back or a front rack position, and so the exercise becomes infinitely more challenging as that athlete advances. When we get to the point where we get an athlete to that level, what we do is we'll typically do 3 to 6 reps on one side of the body, take rest, and then we'll do 3 to 6 reps on the other side of the body. We won't do it to where we just switch the legs and then go through the movement. We'll actually add the rest break in between the 2 legs.
Right.
And so that's the advancements. And so typically 3 to 4 sets, 3 to 6 repetitions on the movement. Some of the body weight stuff, you can take those repetitions up higher, but as soon as you start adding load to it, I like to stay more in the strength range, and I don't train it so much like a hypertrophy exercise. I really focus that movement on developing strength, keeping the repetitions low so that the technical quality of the movement is very high.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree. And what about your isometric? How long is that hold?
Typically for the isometric hold, we'll start our athletes off with 15 seconds, move them to 20, 25, and then eventually 30 seconds after we'll run that same thing. 2 to 3 sets really on that. Once we get good at that, then we'll start going into working 10 repetitions with 2-second pause at the bottom and up, and I usually just do 2-second pause once we're progressing the exercise out there.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. Well, guys, I hope you learned something. I know I did, just from him being here the last couple of days, and we're going to learn a little bit more as he's here and as we're kind of bouncing ideas off each other. But like us, subscribe to us, share this, add a comment, whatever you want. We'll try and get back to you as soon as we can, all right? Take care. 180, out.